Okay, hey guys, welcome to another forensic happy hour. So it should be another good time. Again, it's just all about hanging out, have a good time, talking to some DFIR professionals. So today we have Brett Schaefer is going to come on. He's going to give us, or Shaver's going to give us some information and knock our socks off, I'm sure. So, without any further ado, we're going to have a little conversation. And so, look, here we go. Brett Shavers. First thing, I want to make sure say cheers and obviously thank you for everything that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so, let's just kind of get into it. And I want you to just tell everyone who's Brett Shavers. Give us a little bit of your background. Get things on you can go back to your childhood. Remember, it's all just have a good time. But more or less, just kind of keep it on. Hey, what really got you into?
Oh, sorry, I had a delay there, but um,
Yes.
yeah, it's, started in law enforcement. I guess would be the start of the forensic world. Before that, I was in active duty Marines and some other things like that. And actually, in law enforcement, when I started, there wasn't really forensics per se, other than the first cases. The FBI had floppy disk, and but probably no departments had their internal forensics. So I did a lot of things before the forensics actually started. Bike patrol, SWAT, undercover, that kind of sort of thing, use of force instructor. So I did a whole gamut of things before getting into forensics. And by the time I got into it, it was already pretty much ingrained. FBI, Secret Service, Homeland Security, everyone, even before Homeland Security rather, had forensics. And I kind of jumped on that bandwagon from friends of mine who were, federal, and watching some friends go to training, to FLETC, and tell me all about it. And I was thinking, yeah, this undercover work was a little bit more dangerous than it looks, on the outside. And this computer forensic world looks kind of neat. So that's how I became interested in it, and took some courses, and that was it. As soon as I took the first course, and carving, deleted file, it's like, oh my gosh, this is actually pretty cool. Even though it's a picture or whatever, it's just really neat. So doing that was, I could immediately see the benefit of, oh, this is criminal investigations, the key to solving a lot of problems. And so I kind of went that direction. So while I was doing undercover work, I was also training myself, going to courses in forensics, probably 1,000+ hours in the classrooms everywhere, FLETC, the normal stuff that law enforcement goes to, and some private courses. And then I proposed a lab for my agency at no cost. Found a closet, threw in some old computers, got some free software, and offered to do some cases. And that was my entry into the world of forensics. It was,
So so what do you see now with forensics? Is it all the same thing, right? In talking about mobile devices, the different types of devices that are out there. I mean, has it gotten easier?
some things are easier, some things are harder. I think what was hard before is easy, and what opposite is true as well. So I think it just all depends in the cases. If you look at a street gang shooting case for law enforcement world anyway, then you have a lot of mobile devices. But if you look at a business case, you'll probably have more desktop, laptop, server type cases and less of the mobile. So I think it all depends on what the case type is. Children case, missing kids, that sort of thing. Mobile devices is going to be pretty prevalent there. Um,
So I always like to go. I had prior law enforcement as well. Did almost 15 years, and so the what I always tell people when, especially in the side, getting into the forensic side of it, um, d- you know, here's the Nextel, right? Or here's the LG device and the flip phone type, right? So it was back in the day of taking pictures of stuff, but we started doing and extracting the information off of that. I mean, would you say that the data is typically the same that's utilized in law enforcement, whether text messages, whether it be for third party call logs, or do you see the data that's utilized within cases now different than, say, what we did back in in the 90s and then in say in the early 2000s?
I think the data format itself is different. The way it's structured and transmitted and everything else, all that is different. But I think the crux of the data is the same. I mean, a text message is a text message. An email is an email. Photos are photos. So I think looking for the same thing is the same, but just the manner of how we're doing it, the devices, they're
Right.
changing.
Right.
My first ones were Blackberries. For border smuggling, there was a lot of Blackberries are found on the border because after they cross the border, they'll toss their phone, that Blackberry that they were using to communicate, and then just trying to access those at those early years. I mean, we couldn't. It was one of those. Sorry, I don't think we can do that yet.
Right.
So I think
Right.
the information's the same. Just the how to get it.
Right, it's still kind of the same. I mean, if you look at some Blackberries, obviously, well, BlackBerry, if you run into a kind of an Android type side of it, but there still are, and obviously a lot of devices that are really difficult to get into, whether mobile devices or otherwise, right? I mean, we have different encryption. Encryption now is a problem. Locked devices are going to be a problem. What do you see as, I mean, the biggest challenge for digital forensics? I mean, it really doesn't have to do with mobile devices, but for digital forensics and for investigators, what do you think is the biggest challenge?
Well, I think it's fair to say that the amount of data and the access to the data. I think those are two important biggest challenges. Access being the encryption, or just even though it's not encrypted, you just can't figure it out. It's just how do I look at this thing? There's no tools for it. You try to write things for it. Just the time involved. I think that's a big issue, but also just the amount of data, because a small cell phone today, a smartphone today is way beyond what were desktops, a decade ago, as far as data storage, what it can do. They're small computers with ability to make phone calls.
Yeah, and I know that you're a big proponent of training, right? And so give us a little bit of the information. I know you have information that's out there, readily available for people. So tell everyone a little bit about that.
As far as what available,
I mean,
or
training, yeah. I mean, training or resources, those types of items.
yeah, I am a proponent of training because, as you know, in law enforcement, it's you want to hit the ground running because every case, your first case, you can be the newest Marina's on probation on the street with an FTO, but that first case that you get that you're being judged on, it's not like, well, this is a test case, this is practice. Someone's life, potentially is going to be altered with what you do, so you really want to know what you're doing. So same thing with forensics. Practice is fine on practice data, but when you're having real cases, training is probably the fastest way to get up to speed. So as far as training, I've spent money on classes that the first day I just go, I wasted my money for one way or the other, whether I have no idea what they're talking about because this is way beyond me, or the opposite side of, I should be teaching this class myself instead of taking it just because it's the other end of the spectrum. So I think for training, it's important to know what you're looking for, and to budget your money, budget your time, because spending a week in a class that does nothing for you, because you're taking a mobile device class, but actually you don't need that. You need something else, or you're taking or a Mac OS when you don't do Mac, you're doing Windows. Just be careful with it, what you're spending, because there's a lot of training available.
So, again, coming from kind of the same thing of really, farming and trying to find that training, and then to really building your own training classes, kind of what I did. And I mean, obviously you started, like you said, you built the closet, right? You built the closet, you put the equipment into that, really kind of grassroots, bringing that information in. And I mean, to me, that's really that's typical to a lot of the police departments, right? That are small. The majority of police departments aren't able to afford 14 Freds that are running 32 cores and being able to have every software under the sun, right? But and so what kind of advice, because you did it, I mean, obviously on the training side of it, what are some things that investigators, law enforcement investigators, can do to help with the funding? Because obviously driving an hour to go to, say, a state lab, when they have 75 phones that are sitting waiting. So what do you think? I mean, what are some things that you can tell, some of the law enforcement officers? I mean, what can they do?
First, read up on what you need, because, like I said, if you're going down the wrong path, Because there are people who love Macs. And I have Macs. I like Mac, obviously. But if majority of the cases you see are not Mac, spending all your time doing Mac forensic training, you're only going to be able to handle 5% of the caseload, really. And the rest you're going to say, sorry, I got to farm it out. So I think knowing what your target, there's always going to be something that you can't do. You're going to get a phone that you can't do. You're going to get an OS you can't do because you don't have any training in it. You don't have the tools. You have to accept that as a fact. So I think it's best to cover the broadest picture first. You look at the past cases, in the past year or month and say, well, we've had 9 Windows computers and 0 Macs. Well, Macs out of the question. We may focus on Windows or this model of iPhone or whatever it is and focus on those. And then look for the tools that can handle the most of what you do. Because like I said, there's always going to be something that a tool doesn't handle, a device that you've never seen before. And those you just have to accept that I can't do that without some more training or some more tools and some help. So just evaluate what you need. And because if you're buying a $10,000 software piece that you're going to use twice and another $5,000 that you're going to use a couple times, and then you really need another tool to handle something, eventually the boss is going to say, seriously, how much are we going to be spending here?
Right.
So get some ROI on what you can with the least amount of money first. Because
that's great advice.
Yeah,
that's great advice.
Because getting the big case, when you get a big case, that's when I say big, it's in the media, that's life and limb at risk kind of thing. Then money flows a lot easier because I can do this if I had some money and some tools. But for your everyday cases, you really have to be judicious in what you're asking to pay for.
Yeah. I mean, that's an exact point. I mean, if you're not processing, Macs, then really try to prioritize. And so that's good. So I mean, the advice is really for your area, right? If your area is seeing iOS and Android, which is kind of everywhere.
Right.
Don't go to a class that's teaching you how to do Windows phones, right? Or don't spend all your
Right.
time in dealing with that because you might run into it, you might not. If you do run into it, that's okay. It's one every year, that you
Right.
might have on some sort of Windows phone. So no, that's great advice. So let me speak to the elephant in the room, right? So I really kind of started doing this a lot because, hey, we are all sitting in our homes, right?
Right.
And having to isolate. Obviously, things are opening up. But so give me something, I guess, because let's just be happy about it. What can you say? I mean, what has been the benefit of kind of this life slowdown for you because of obviously with the coronavirus?
I don't know about the slowdown. I've not been as busy as I have in quite a while for some reason. It's just, but I understand what you're saying. The benefit that I've seen is the amount of people who have a lot of free time, more time in their hands, and they can provide stuff online. Here's a class. Here's this, that, and the other. And I mean things like this where we can communicate more, we can network more, we can talk more to each other, we can send messages to each other, we can read more, we can do all those things. So even in my less limited time during this time, I'm still taking advantage of everything that I can find. So if something comes up and I go, oh my gosh, that's something I've really been meaning to do. So for example, like autopsy, the famous autopsy.
Yeah, that's free. Brian Carrier's fantastic. You can get online, man. It's great stuff.
It's free, and it came up, and I forced myself to do it because I figured, this is something I've been wanting to throw in autopsy for the longest time, but just haven't had the opportunity or time to say, well, let me really bear down on this. But something like that gets presented in front of you in a time like this, I go, well, I have no more excuses. So let's just push the excuses out the way and let's bear down and get that one done and learn some things. And that goes for everything else that I see online. Like I said, the amount of information that we've been putting out these past few months is quite amazing, and it's the best time to pick up things that are new. I mean, Alexis, all these tools, iLeap and everything. I mean, everything's coming out. I can't keep up with.
Yeah, I think it has, and again, I always speak to pretty much the guests that are on here of the kind of the silver lining because hey, we're all kind of here, right? So what can we do to benefit and the different types of things and benefit into the community, right? Put a little bit more, I guess humanity or this is really who we are, and trying to one allow people to still say train where they are, allow people to be able to communicate differently, which to me, and I'm going to ask your opinion on this, but I mean, to me, the way that we have to communicate now, the way that we're doing this, in speaking to each other, people have, with Zoom having these, conferences, these large corporations, the regular businesses, the small businesses are all working differently. I think it's going to change once everybody's kind of moved out of this, and we're on to the next crisis. But I think that the way that people are going to work is be changed forever. People graduate high school, you do a drive-by. People are birthdays, you do a drive-by. They're getting hundreds of thousands of people that are driving by. For these people that didn't get to walk in the graduate. And I mean, my daughter's one of those. That, and so I've actually participated in a drive-by high school graduation for my nephew, and I said, I think I want to do this every time.
Right.
Because you're not sitting there for 4 hours with 600 people, and it's a little bit more efficient. So I guess, what do you think?
Uh, we get more done, for sure, certainly. The lack of traffic. I don't live in Seattle, but when I have to go to Seattle, that's an hour
Right.
for a 10-mile drive.
Mm-hmm.
So just those time savings and the immediate communication that we can have, which is why I feel so busy, I think, because it's one of those, everybody's at home, so therefore you're available,
Right.
Even though you're not really available. But I think, like you said, when this is over, we get back to a semi-normal. I think this communication method will continue more than it was before, but less than what it is now. And I still think we're going to be more effective just with remote work and data, and businesses realizing, especially in this field, we don't really have to come to the office
Right.
to do this. We can log in and do everything.
Right.
Some things you have to connect. You plug in something and you
Right.
let it go. But everything else, the eyes on is you can be anywhere. Which we knew that before. I mean, we always known that. We've done that for years, where you just log in, VPN, and you can do some work.
Right.
But now we're doing everything that way and realizing it's possible.
So let me pose this to you as well: is how about we look on the other side, right? Now, granted, work, it really didn't stop for any of us, right, in the field that we're in. But do you think that it's actually going to skyrocket because people working from home, or because crime obviously never stops, and it doesn't matter whether it's corporate crime, some things happened, IP theft, HR, or we start talking about the criminal element of it. It continues. It might be a different, say, method to that. So do you think that there's going to have to be additional skills for individuals on doing digital investigations based upon maybe the new type of exploits, or the new type of crime, electronic crime, whether it be cyber, or just on the digital forensic side?
Well, I think in the criminal world, besides the FBI, the hacking cases, but your basic street cop homicides and that sort of thing, I don't think that's going to change. I think that's always going to be, you need the officer there to seize the device, the drive, the whatever, and physically bring it back and enter it into evidence. I think that's always, it has to be. You can't do a remote acquisition of the suspect's house computer and say it's all good. On the civil side, I think it's always been a little bit different because the evidence rules are a little bit different. You don't have to go seize the entire server on an employee harassment matter. It's a civil internal matter. A lot of things you can do remotely anyway, and you're not seizing a complete all the devices for the company. So it's different. So I think that was going to increase more because we were doing it before, but I think we've shown that we can really do it even more so. But law enforcement, I don't believe that's going to. I don't think they can change. You can't not seize the smartphone. You can't not seize the laptop with the suicide note on it. You have to physically grab those things.
So do you think that on the law enforcement side of it, those people that are obviously making the decisions are going to be hiring additional people for the digital forensic side for the backlog that might be coming out of this or continuing to grow?
Yeah, I think you and I both know the answer to hiring extra people. Oh, yeah, yeah. That just
Yeah.
probably means someone's going to get an extra duty.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I 100%. I remember when I was doing arson, burglary, and computer forensics because, hey, you're doing computer forensics, but hey, we have to backfill and you have to do this. Well, I have all these computers up. No, don't worry about it. Make sure that you. And so it's just,
yeah.
I completely get it. But I mean, do you see, and what I tried to when I was obviously leaving the department was, really, I was starting to see, well, I was really only doing mobile devices at that time simply because I had to convince the department that it's very, very important to have someone dedicated because it changes so fast, just like on the computer forensics side, and doing 75 phones, in a week, and having all of this other stuff because, how many times has it happened to you? Like CID comes in and says, hey, yeah, I need you to do this phone right now. And you're like, okay, well, I mean, I'll get to it. They're like, no, it's got to be easy. It's just phone. So here, go and do that.
Never happened.
Right? And so I would continue to run into that. And so do you ever see, I mean, obviously the larger departments, a lot of them, can have those who are doing mobile, but do you ever see, say, the smaller departments finally understanding and trying to split that caseload?
You know, one good example I've seen with the Tacoma Police Department in Washington State, John Bear, before he retired, he was the forensic
Known
guy
John?
there.
No John a
Sorry, yeah,
lot?
yep. So, I went to visit his office here and there, and he had some PhD students and some master's graduate students, and they're writing some incredible. I mean, he was telling me what they're writing. I didn't see it, but he was telling me, oh, he's writing this and she's writing this, and I'm listening, going, oh my gosh. And they're interns, volunteers, and no money out the pocket of anybody in for Tacoma
Right.
City, and they're getting great experience and great cases. And John's got some help, some great, and
Yeah.
he knows what he's doing, and they know what they're doing. I go, this is awesome, right?
Yeah.
And the lab's a typical size, as you can imagine, of a small, lab. But that's one way I can see the additional people coming, where maybe, but besides
Yeah.
getting the full time
Yeah, paying
FTE,
for it when it's
yeah,
like, that's going to cost how much, and they have to be trained. And no, what? We're getting it for free? Yeah, we'll get it for free. Yeah, no, I know exactly. It was, not necessarily a rhetorical question, but I completely kind of knew what the answer would be on that, being that it's still that way. In the department that that I came from, they've moved some things into, so narcotics might have a guy that does just mobile phones, and then you might have, but they farm out still a lot of work to the RCFL still, so it's one of those, it's interesting, but enough work stuff. So tell me, obviously, what is it that and it doesn't have to do anything with work, in your free time, I mean, what are you doing, what are you watching, what's on the TV,
in my what? So
your TV? I mean, hey, we're
free,
all
you say
streaming
free
stuff
time,
now. Yeah, your
free
free
time.
time. Yeah, what's that?
Yeah. Um, well, I go for walks with my wife. That's my biggest thing. Where we gotta get out. We gotta spend some time together. And we have to breathe some air rather than recirculated air. So that's the biggest thing. I'm not a TV watcher really. Um,
Smart.
uh, it's just a time, but I'll watch a full season of Black Mirror, or Breaking Bad, you
Right,
know.
exactly. Yeah,
And that
yeah.
was gone. That's sad. Breaking Bad ended. That's bad. So
Right,
those
right.
sort of things, of course. But
Yeah, you got to
of
find
course,
the new series. But
right,
yeah. So tell
waiting.
me this on the family stuff. Because it's been nice for me as well. Because I'm typically on the road quite a bit, and it's been very, very nice to be home. As much as I have, my wife might say differently.
Yeah,
But it's very nice to be home. So I think again that's another huge benefit. Of doing that, and that sounds the same way on the family side for you.
yeah. I mean, my kids are grown. My daughter, she's getting a graduate degree at USC. My son, he's Yale Law, so he's kind of on leave from school during this time, but
Right.
he'll be going back for his second year as soon as they start back up again. So they're kind of on their own. So no one's
Yeah.
bothering anybody there.
Right.
Yeah. So just timing could always be worse, and I can for other families with kids at different ages and different things going on, it'd be a lot tougher than I can imagine. I mean, it's tough.
People are appreciating teachers. right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Big time. Saying this homeschooling thing, you know what? Teachers are, and I hopefully they all say, yeah, they all need to be paid a lot of money. So,
right, yeah, right,
hopefully they see that
right.
as a benefit going, please, I'll pay you whatever you want.
Yeah,
Just
just
don't
thank
have
them.
them. Exactly.
Just thank
So
them.
anyway, I want to thank you. I mean, it's a fantastic conversation. Just a little, have a good time, hear about you. And you know what? You've been doing some fantastic things. Obviously, on the forensic side of it, read about you all the time. The family side of it sounds like you've done everything great. I mean, the way that your kids are. So, hats off to you, and especially splitting that with the family time and with the business time and everything that you do for the community. So I will say cheers and
Cheers to you.
thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll have to make sure I'll have you on again. Yeah?
Name the day. You bet.
Okay, until next time. All right. Cool. Hey, I hope everyone enjoyed this other Friday happy hour. The forensic time, good times to be had by all of the people involved in the community. So, hey, make sure that you tune in next week on Friday. Have another great guest. Make sure that you are following on Twitter, or you can subscribe to the channel as well so that you do not miss